Wow, sleeping's boring. I want to play some video games. Shark Tale. Ah, fuck. Hit off the ceiling. Don't care. Look at this fucking game. Look at his stupid fucking face. Now, if you ask me why my first review is going to be on fucking Shark Tale of all things, well, the thing is, if I script this review, I don't think anyone's going to care because I don't think there's any diehard Shark Tale fans in the world. And if you do exist, what is wrong with you?
Get some help.
I'm not looking forward to this. Shit. Well, if there isn't Shark Tale for the PS2, Shark Tale for the GameCube. Because I've got a controller. How am I gonna play it? Using an emulator. Don't tell your parents that. It's almost illegal.
This version of Shark Tale was published by Activision and developed by Edge of Reality. What a name. Heard of them before? Yeah, me neither. They mostly just ported games to other consoles like Tony Hawk to the N64 or Mass Effect to like the PS3. They did make Loadout that one time, but that game is more dead than F-Zero. Well, I guess those JPEGs had to go somewhere. My favorite part about this menu screen is the fact you can see a fish that has never been seen before, a mailbox. They like to eat other smaller fish by creating layering issues in the fucking menu screen.
David Attenborough, get on that shit.
Anyway, the menu controls are just strange. You have to use up and down on the D-pad to move the menu, not the joysticks. It just doesn't work. Even though it looks like you might be able to use left and right on the D-pad, you can't. It doesn't do anything, even though it's on the right. And to go back after you select something, you have to press Y, because they aren't normal. It's gotta be Y, not B. Crappy menus aside, what is the game like, you might ask? Well... it's not good. The game starts with Oscar, voiced by Will Smith himself, in a dream sequence where he's being chased by some shark with weird red eyes. Oscar is then woken up by Miss Sandwich.
It's Sanchez!
One thing that's neat about this game is the chapter transitions, if anything. It's made to look like a newspaper with a large headline that tells you something about the chapter that just happened. Then it pans to the next article to transition to the next chapter. This is just a nice touch and presentation, really. It's nothing amazing, but...
Hey, you're kind of slow, aren't you?
Jesus Christ.
You could use your dash to circle them fine furnishes.
Shark Tale has a really bad audio mixing issue. By default, the music is far too loud. You can go into the options to change the audio levels to make it better, but the cutscene audio is controlled by the music volume slider, and the cutscenes are far quieter than the music, so you either have to bear with or deal with cutscenes where the characters whisper at each other. This part involves you having to collect 16 out of 20 items that have been chucked outside of Miss San Francisco's window. You have to swim in a circle around items to collect them in this game, which is a bit strange, but it's fine actually, but meh. This gameplay is where the real meat of the game is a 2.5D game where you swim around. Oscar controls alright, it's not like amazing, but it's fine. His turning arc is fine, and you can hold down B to deal a charged up dash that can deal damage to enemies and to knock them out. Or if you just press it normally, it allows you to do a small boost. Without dashing, Oscar's speed is painfully slow, but that's quite useful for maneuvering around tight spaces to not get hit.
I don't think I'm
Gangsta.
enough to understand what any of this means.
Well, what do you think about this? It's a disgrace is what it is.
Apparently these shorties have been spraying Oscar Sucks Pond Scum around the neighborhood, which is as much as a burn as your mum. Thanks, Alan. This is the level where they decide to go 2.5D, and it makes the level unbelievably confusing. Once you hit a certain point in the level, you can press A on a directional sign to turn 90 degrees in a set direction, which just gets really fucking confusing, because all the signs look the same, and all the backgrounds look the same. They're all just houses and doors, and you can go in the doors to heal yourself, but they put a wall behind it, because they couldn't be bothered putting a black void there or something, to make it look like it was going into a house. There's nothing else interesting in this level. There's no landmarks, so it took me 20 fucking minutes to beat the level, because I couldn't figure out where I was meant to go.
Man, this level would have been far more enjoyable if I had a map to look at. Wouldn't that be helpful?
After that, Oscar decides to erase vandalism from the fabric of reality, and then he decides to hijack a news report to go tell everyone to...
You want the fucking brawl?
And then he decides to bust a nut and some moves. This is where the dance part of the game comes from, because it decides to be a rhythm game. Except the big problem is, the UI sucks massive dick, right? So if you play like DDR, it will come from one direction, because, you know, that makes it simple. Or if you play with Osu, it'll have a little circle indicator or whatever. In Shark Tale, because they're so cool, right? The notes go in a circle for some reason, which, if you've ever played a fucking rhythm game and you have to look at a circle of notes, that's just fucking weird. Like, it's so hard to read what I'm doing when I don't even know, like, what direction they're coming from, since they're going in a circle. I think the most offensive part about the rhythm game parts is that I absolutely love rhythm games. I play the shit out of OC, and I have friends that do so as well, and that's why I like playing it. But in this game, they have the biggest crime that a rhythm game can make, which is the notes don't fit with the music. What is the point of a rhythm game if the notes don't fit the music at all? It's just pressing arrows then. Obviously in a rhythm game you would need to hear the song, and the problem in Shark Tale is that the sound effects for the combos and hitting the notes is far too loud. After this, the race section of the game starts in Chapter 4, where Oscar has to race to work before his boss gets there. And I know I was just on about the rhythm parts, now I'm on about racing, but that's how disjointed Shark Tale feels as a game. There's so many different styles that don't really mesh together well properly. Well, here's the race sections of the game. In this, you control a bit like a car, you know, A to accelerate, B to brake and drift and stuff like that. But I think the strangest thing is the tutorial at the very start tells you how to do a dodge move using the L and R triggers, but it doesn't tell you how to accelerate, so the start of that first race involved me pressing every button to figure out how to go forward, because up doesn't make you go forward, it's instead A. The controls in the racing sections feels really, really terrible. It's like trying to turn through mud half the time. Like, when you do a drift, power boost in the racing sections, unlike in Mario Kart, like, whilst you're drifting you would start going around, in this you start to stop and slow down, and then you boost forward after you've made your direction. But turning is really slow, there's no way to increase the speed of that. So it just feels like it breaks the pacing of the racing sections.
Speaking of broken pacing, the rest of the game has pacing issues. It's not just the racing parts, because the two most extreme examples I can think of are
Chapter 5 and Chapter 16. Chapter 5 has issues because it plays like Chapter 2 with the 2.5D side-scrolling thing, but it's meant to be a bit stealthy, so when you get caught by these fish, you need to press A to go hide away. Problem is, they have a memory of a goldfish, which would be a funny joke if they were goldfish, they aren't. And the level only lasts 1 minute and 13 seconds, so before you even realize what you're doing, the level ends. On the other end of the spectrum is Chapter 16, which plays like Chapter 2 with the 2.5D again, except the layout of the level is really confusing, as you need to hit 6 paparazzis and then get to the end of the level. Problem is, the map only shows a portion of the level, and you mostly have to navigate through the sewers. And the sewers themselves don't have a map, and they're very maze-like. If you try to progress to the next part of the map without collecting all the paparazzis, Crazy Joe will interrupt you and tell you to go find all of them. So you'll have to backtrack all the way through the sewers to go find that one paparazzi, and then navigate all the way back up to go back to the same place you were before. This level just has an unbelievable amount of backtracking. It made me so mad whilst playing the game that I actually had to go stop what I was doing, take a break, and then come back to it later. You may have noticed that I talked about a map in the game. They only tell you about this in Chapter 8, halfway through. What? Like, when that happened, I was really pissed off, because it meant that 20 minutes I spent on Chapter 2 was not really for anything. The only thing that actually kept me entertained during Chapter 16 was crashing into other fish and then making them hit the screen, which is really distracting, but it is really fun to do. But imagine if during the entire review I kept throwing stuff at the camera. Yeah, it kind of gets old really fast, but it's funny the first time. I'm 10 minutes into this video, and I haven't even talked about the fighting sections. Yes, there's another style of gameplay, and I nearly forgot to talk about it. I don't think it even matters that I forgot to talk about it, because these sections are big doo-doo. Like, there's no, like, solution behind the fights. It's just, you just press away, and then sometimes Oscar will hit the other character, and then 90% of the time he'll miss, and then you have to dodge, and it's really easy to dodge. You just press a button in the correct direction. And then sometimes it pops up saying, "Get them, Oscar," and then you get a bunch of free punches in, but I didn't understand what you were meant to do. So I just used the left punch because that's the fastest animation. I later found out in another fighting chapter that you can do super moves, and the super moves are terrible. Don't use them.
If you say so.
Falcon Punch!
Well, chapter 12 happens, and it's called Sleeping with Da Fishes, and you're tied to the ground, and there's two jellyfish trying to electrocute you and kill you. This part's really weird. It's the only time in the entire game where something like this happens, and the camera's spinning, the jellyfish are spinning, and you have to move back and forth or left or right to dodge the stingers, and it's I don't know. It exists. Chapter 15 is called Living the Vida Loca, and from the title you'd probably guess it play, that song. Guess what? If I had to pick a level that I actually somewhat enjoyed, it would have to be Chapter 14. Because, sure, it takes place in the platforming sections, but it's mostly 2D, there's none of that weird camera 2.5D stuff, so Oscar in 2D places such as the sewers or this level is actually completely fine to control. I don't mind how he moves. And the point of this level is to collect 3 pearls that you get from going to each side of the building and then going through some obstacle course. Most of the obstacle courses are actually somewhat fun to do, excluding one that's a bit tedious, but compared to the rest of the game, this part's just good. Another cool part of the game is Chapter 24, which is the last race level in the entire game, and you're running away from a shark instead of trying to catch up to something on time. And if the shark gets too close to you, you can see the shark's mouth moving really close to camera, and I think that's quite cool. Okay, yes, I've seen that in Rayman 2 before, but come on, I'm grasping at straws here. Another decent chapter in the game is Chapter 18, which is a stealth escort level, which sounds like absolute hell, but the escort stays out of the way all the time, so it's like they're not even there, and the stealth is mediocre, but it's alright. It's just the game in general, to be honest, but there's police going around trying to find you, and you have to hide. If you get caught, you have 3 seconds to go hide, or else you get an instant game over. And then at the same time, there's also paparazzi that are trying to take pictures of you. And this is shown by a little camera frame thing. And if you go into that, it's also an instant game over. So if you're trying to hide from the police, you can't stay still for too long, or else you'll get caught by the paparazzi, but you want to stay still, so you don't get caught by the police. And that was kind of interesting.
You might be wondering, what's your reward for playing through all of Shark Tale, you on your little 2-hour experience? You wanna know? You wanna know how the game rewards you for beating the game?
And in other news, famed Shark Slayer author...
Your reward is a lazy news report that tells you what just happened, and then some stuff that happens after the ending. They could have shown us what happened after by giving us a cutscene like they've been doing throughout the entire game, but I guess, they gotta go make money and they ran out of time or something, because it just kind of comes out of nowhere. Whilst the credits are scrolling, you're also rewarded with what I think are screenshots from the movie itself, and I can't confirm this as I've never watched Shark Tale and I don't think I ever will, but pictures during an ending isn't really a reward. I mean, okay, yes, you can argue that after the credits there is a cutscene, but honestly, your guess is as good as mine, because I have no idea what this is meant to represent. Is this like a plot point from the movie that I wouldn't understand because I've never seen it, or I don't know.